George Goldberg. Me being first-time chair, thought I should follow examples, so I have a motivation device. This is also me hoping for Netherlands-Germany in the final. Please give a hand to George, which will talk about telepathy in the next 35 minutes, I hope. George. Cool. There's a. Oh, where are the TV? I don't know. Sorry. Yeah. I know. George, floor is yours.
Okay. Can people hear me, like at the back and stuff? Is this microphone working? Can you hear me back there? Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm George. I'm going to be talking about telepathy and KDE. And I'm going to be trying to do it reasonably quickly since we're running late already. So, things I'm going to look at. A quick introduction to telepathy, but I'm not going to dwell on that for too long. And then, telepathy and KDE. What's special to KDE with telepathy? What we're planning, what we've already done, and what we're hoping to do in the future. And then, if there's time at the end, look a bit at some of the more exciting, more unusual ideas that people have had for things we can do with telepathy. I'm not going to be going over like how telepathy works in great detail or why it's a good technology or anything like that. There have been lots of talks before. The link there on the telepathy website, there are slides from countless presentations other people have given about the basics of telepathy. If you're interested, they're very good. Have a look through. So let's get started. A quick introduction to telepathy. According to the website, we have a big definition. Telepathy is a flexible, modular communications framework that enables real-time communication via pluggable protocol backends. So translating that into something vaguely meaningful. It's a communication framework. It's based on D-bus and a set of D-bus interfaces that all the different components use to communicate with each other. And, of course, there's a set of components that implement those D-bus interfaces. So here's the basic architecture. At the bottom, we've got XMPP, MSN, SIP, any other instant messaging protocol you can imagine. Each one of those is a program in its own right that implements the protocol D-bus interfaces for telepathy. And then talking to those protocols, protocol components over D-bus are the clients. So you have maybe a text chat client, a voice application, or even a VNC client. So, the protocol implementations, we call them connection managers in telepathy jargon. And there's lots of different ones. There's just 3 there. There's one based on libpurple, the Pigeon protocol library, which can do a dozen or more different protocols, and there's plenty of others. So they connect to the instant messaging network. They make those connections to the instant messaging network available over D-bus, and that means you only log in once to the instant messaging network, and that connection can be shared by as many different user interface client applications as you want, and you still only need one connection. And then there's the client applications on the other side of the diagram. They do stuff, text chat, video, voice, file transfer, pretty much anything you can do with instant messaging protocols. And then in the middle, in between the protocol, the connection managers, the clients, the text chat interface or whatever, we've got two other special components, the account manager and the channel dispatcher. First, the account manager. It's a service that stores the account details, the username, the password, the server address, things like that. And it's one centralized store. So you configure your user accounts once on the system. You configure your MSN account, your Jabber account, and they're stored there. And any application that's going to do something with instant messaging is going to get the user accounts from the same store. So you don't have to configure in Capete, you don't have to configure in Empathy, you don't have to configure in any other application. You just do it once and they're all stored there. And it plugs into the current implementation we have of the account manager uses the free desktop shared secrets store, which is supported by GNOME Keyring and is very soon to be supported by K-Wallet. But unfortunately not quite yet, but I hope in 4.6 it will be supported. And then there's the channel dispatcher. So you've got your protocol implementations, your connection managers, you've got your different client applications. The client applications want to start text chatting or voice chatting with someone. So they could talk directly to the protocol, the connection managers, but instead they request to talk to someone through this service, the channel dispatcher, which means one program can request text chat with someone, and it doesn't actually need to handle, to do the text chat, to put a UI up to do the text chat. It can say, I want to start a text chat with someone, and I want the default instant messaging program to pop up with a text chat to that person. So you could, for example, have a plasmoid on your desktop with representing a person. You could say, I want to text chat to them. And so the plasmoid asks the channel dispatcher to start a text chat, and then the channel dispatcher tells the connection manager to start one, and then it tells your instant messaging client, say Capete, to pop up the text chat to that person. And it also means when a connection comes in from someone else, say another person wants to chat to me, the channel dispatcher can start my preferred instant messaging program, say Capete again, and then that'll pop up with the appropriate text chat. Or if, say, it's a voice chat that's coming in to me, the channel dispatcher can go, Capete doesn't support voice chat. I'll start K-Call instead. So it can make sure the right application is started for the right kind of communication. Okay, so that's a bit about how it works. What can it do? We've got text chat, voice and video chat, file transfers, all the standard things you'd expect of instant messaging. And then we've got this feature called tubes, which is something a bit special to telepathy. Tubes are a bit like a socket over the instant messaging connection. So, for instance, if you're trying to make a peer-to-peer connection to someone, you could write all the kind of NAT traversal stuff in your program and all that, or you could make use of the instant messaging networks, which already have done all the hard work implementing that. So we have these two types of tubes. There's a stream tube and a dbus tube. So a stream tube is literally a socket, a normal TCP socket that is proxied over your instant messaging connection. So if I can chat on XMPP on Jabber to someone, then I can also create a socket connection to them. So I can then do, for example, VNC, desktop sharing, which is a feature we already have. So I can be chatting away in Capete to my friend, and I can say, I can't make my computer work. It's doing something really weird. Can you help me fix it? And he's there trying to type instructions, but it's not really working. I say, OK, I'll share my desktop. Click a button, and he can view my desktop, control it, and fix the problem with my computer. There's also dbus tubes. This is literally a dbus connection between two contacts, proxied, again, over the instant messaging network. The cool thing about this is if, for example, you've got a game and you want to make it so you can play multiplayer against your contacts in that game, then instead of having to figure out some kind of protocol to talk over sockets or something to like, you know, a protocol for the game over a network or whatever. If the game's got a dbus interface, you can make a dbus tube connection, and then you can just use the dbus interface to implement the multiplayer support in the game. So it makes it much easier for applications that already use dbus. Okay, so that's just a little bit about telepathy. If you want to know more about telepathy, come and ask me anytime this week, or have a look at the telepathy website. Now let's look at some of the stuff that's going on in KDE with it. It's been a long time coming. It's been, you know, I've been involved for about 3 years now, and that wasn't the beginning. So it's been a long wait getting it there in KDE. The plan we have, we're focusing on the sort of unique features, the new stuff we can do with telepathy. We don't want to just duplicate what you can already do with Prophetic, although, of course, the starting point is to get the basics there. We want to reuse existing telepathy components. Telepathy's been used for some time in the GNOME desktop. It's on MIMO, so the N900, if you have that, the Nokia N900 uses telepathy. So there are lots of bits already made. There are already connection managers for Jabber, for MSN, for libpurple, so the sort of 20-odd protocols that supports. And because each bit is separate with dbus in the middle, we can make use of them. So that saves us a lot of work there. We're not really having to implement the protocols. We've got them for free. We've got a channel dispatcher. We've got an account manager already written for GNOME and the N900 for free. So in true open source spirit, we can reuse them and move on to the more interesting stuff. So we want to provide a nice API for interacting with people and widgets that can be reused by applications to integrate telepathy features. And we really want a deep integration. We want, you know, throughout the desktop experience, we want communication, collaboration to be a key part of it. Through Plasma, through all your applications, Office, games, whatever. So, the basics. Before we can start on all the cool stuff, we've got to do the basic stuff. We have an accounts user interface. Not particularly interesting. You can add accounts, you can edit accounts. It's like system-wide, so it's a module for system settings. You can configure your accounts there, and any telepathy using application, be it GNOME, be it KDE, will make use of those accounts. And there's just an example of configuring a Jabber account, all the different settings you can do. Actually, the only settings you have to do, this page here, nice and simple, but then there's all the other extra properties you can tweak. A contact list. This is an example of just the very basic contact list. You can see different various test accounts I'm using there. And we have support for groups and meta contacts. So you can join, if you have several ways of contacting the same person, say an MSN account, a Jabber account, you can link them together and say this is one person. And I'll be saying a bit more on that in a minute. We almost have a working text chat UI, but unfortunately we couldn't quite get it ready for demo in time for Akademy, but I'll be working on that over the next few days, desperately trying to get it done. And since telepathy is all about disconnecting the bits, you know, we don't need a big monolithic instant messaging client anymore. We can have different components all over the place. The first real example of that is to set your presence or your message, you know, I'm away, I'm busy, I'm online. We've got a Plasmoid that does it. And you can see an example there with a sort of overall presence and then 2 accounts where you can set whether you're away, you're busy, set a message. If you were looking at those screenshots, that's obvious. We are, the people working on this are programmers, not UI designers. So if you're interested in this and you're good at UI design, we would love your help. Okay, on to something a bit more interesting. We're using Netmuk as a core part of this work. So I said before, meta contacts, joining multiple different ways of contacting someone together into one contact. For us, the obvious choice for doing this is to use Netmuk, because meta contacts in an instant messaging application, I mean, what you're really saying is these are all different ways of contacting the same person. So this concept, this idea, is not unique to instant messaging. You might have multiple address book entries for the same person. So, and really a person, it's a real, you're talking about a real person. You want to join everything about them together. It's really arbitrary to say this person on their MSN account and this person on their Jabber account are separate entities. So we use Netmuk for this. We make use of two Netmuk ontologies. The PIMO ontology, which represents real-world things, a person, a place, like a picture, a scene in a picture. And then we also make use of the NCO ontology, which represents a contact. This is much more technical level. It's sort of how the computer sees it rather than how the person would think of it in real life. So the NCO ontology is used for each sort of entry, each vCard, each contact address book entry. So you would have, and then, yeah, so each person, each PIMO represented person can have multiple NCO represented like ways of contacting them. So here's a diagram of it. For example, me, George, a person. And then there are different ways of contacting me. There's my Jabber account. There's my MSN account. There's my email address on a groupware server. And there are 3 different address book entries coming from different sources, but they're all me. They're all the same person. So we make use of this PIMO ontology. We just have one person, George, and then we link each individual contact record to that one person. And before I go on to that slide, one of the cool things about this is you can then say, I want to text chat with George. I don't care how, I just want to text chat with him. And then the telepathy libraries can take care of going, right, well, George is online on his MSN account at the moment, so that's probably the best way of talking to him because he's offline on Jabber and he's marked as busy on his other Jabber account. So the one he's online on, that's probably the best thing. So it can then say, right, we'll start a text chat to George's MSN account. And we can work out the best ways of contacting someone from that. That's where we are at the moment. Now, the future. As I've already said, we're really focusing on trying to integrate here with everything. So some examples, there's opportunities for more integration with Plasma, for Contact, K address book, K-mail maybe. K-office, imagine collaborative editing of a text document or a presentation. KDE games, that's something a lot of the proprietary instant messaging programs already have, ability to play games against the contacts there. And I'm sure there's plenty more other opportunities I haven't thought of there. And we want more advanced features. We want to do collaboration stuff. We want to have more voice and video chat, since we've been focusing at the moment on just the basic text chat. And now Telepathy's recently become capable of doing multi-user voice video conferencing. So would be very cool to have a KDE application that can do video conferencing with it. Okay, flying car future. The crazy ideas that one day would be really cool to implement. I'm sure there's loads of them, but I've picked out 2 here that I think are particularly interesting. Firstly, back to Netmuk again. For Netmuk, so far, we've got huge collections of metadata on our computer, all the information we put in, tags, people tagged in images, all the automatically extracted stuff, lots of metadata in there. But wouldn't it be a logical thing to do now to be able to share your metadata with other people? So if I send someone a picture, they can find out who I've tagged as appearing in the picture. And so what about a XMPP-based protocol that can do metadata like interchange between network instances on different computers? And then you could have a network service running in the background that is a client to Telepathy that that will handle channels that request metadata information. So somebody gets a picture from you, they say, I want to know who's tagged in it. And then they use their Telepathy on network service will communicate with yours over the XMPP, and then yours can send back the information. And so that nobody gets any wrong ideas about this, I don't want to steal the credit for that idea. There's a Summer of Code project being worked on by Yashish Handa, who is basically working on something just like that. And then another idea, plasma people. Wouldn't it be cool to be able to just stick a person, like a plasmoid for a person on your desktop? So you can have, maybe you've got an activity for a project you're doing at work, and you've got plasmoids for each of the people on your team there, and you can see their picture, easily contact them, say, I want to ring them now, I want to text chat with them now. You can play games with them, I imagine in the work context that's not so useful, but if it was just friends or something. And even you can look up the history of documents you've been working on collaboratively with them, or game stats, chat history, all that, and then you just have a plasmoid for them and you can access all this information through it. So we have basic text instant messaging components. We have lots of the low-level stuff, the connection managers, the account manager, the channel dispatcher. And we have the beginnings of an API and some widgets that can be reused in applications. And we have lots of cool ideas. What we need now is some really advanced features, the voice, the video, the collaborative stuff, better user interfaces, desperately need them, and more integration, less focus on replicating the old features of Capete, and more focus on the new stuff we can do with this component-based system. And since I'm basically at the end now, on Wednesday at 2 o'clock until 6 or possibly even later, there's going to be a workshop with me and hopefully some other Telepathy developers, and we'll be basically working on anything that interests anyone who comes along with Telepathy. So if you're interested, if you think this sounds cool, you want to maybe start integrating some features into another application, some collaborative stuff, or just have a cool idea for a plasmoid or a special way, a more original kind of user interface for chat or anything like that, then come along and we'll help you get going on that. Any questions?
Please wait for a microphone to come.
Hi. Thanks for your presentation. It was very interesting. I do wonder, though, in how far this is already integrated with Akademy. So,
That's an interesting question, actually, because it's something that has caused me a lot of confusion over the past couple of years. I've literally been yo-yoing between how this should be integrated with Akademy, getting different advice all over the place, and I'm really hoping that I can talk to. I can see Volker there, and I know Kevin, if he's here.
And
yeah,
there's Tobias, he's the K-address book maintainer.
Later on,
you might want to remember that face.
So I'm sure we'll have some kind of meeting to figure this out once and for all, hopefully.
Okay, next one, really short one, might be interesting. When can we get this in our hands as a user?
Sorry?
when can we get this in our hands as a user? Do we have any kind of roadmap?
Okay, well, the plan, it's quite an optimistic plan, but I hope we can manage it since a lot of the people working on this are students and it's the summer holidays at the moment, is we want to do a kind of preview release later on in the summer, probably September, mid to late September, which will run on top of KDE 4.5, and you basically means you can try it all out, see what it's like, and we can get some bug reports and things. And then getting into really optimistic territory here, it would be really nice to integrate this into 4.6. But if that doesn't happen due to real life not being as simple as plans, then 4.7.
Any more questions?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. What about some centralized storage for history information from the conversations?
Sorry,
Is there any
what?
history of the conversations?
History.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good example. So it would be really nice to have a, I believe someone was working on this, so I'm not sure if they still are. You can have different types of telepathy clients. You can have a channel, a handler, so a text chat UI or something, and then you can have...
Okay, so how it works at the moment is you can have more, if you've got a text chat channel that's going on, you can have a handler, which is responsible for actually presenting the user interface, but then you can have more than one observer that just listens to dbus signals. And they don't actually change the state of the channel, they just observe it. And one of the things that we have, it's not necessarily the KDE thing, but there is an existing logger interface client, which just basically listens on all of your text chats and logs all of the messages, and then you can query that. Yeah. And that's held in a central place. I mean, we could have a second logger if we wanted.
On the KDE side, there was actually someone recently working on a logger to log chat history to Akademy, but I haven't heard from them for a long time, so I'm not sure if they're still working on it. But it's certainly something that we'll want to revive at some point soon if it's not already there.
Hello. So really good to hear about the plasmoid. I saw that. It looks cool. Look forward to seeing it in action later. My question is around, I mean, you've talked about, hopefully we get in 4.6, might be a bit optimistic, maybe 4.7. We've got 3, maybe more, 4, smallish communities in KDE already that are focusing on these kinds of things. We have Conversation, we've got Copeta, we have KMS, who has 3 people here at Akademy, and we've got you guys. And every single one of these teams is kind of struggling, right, for human resources. And I look at what you guys are doing, and you redoing some UI that I go, well, a lot of that's in Copeta, and then Copeta's got the Telepathy plugin. Is there any, what is the roadmap, or is there any roadmap for trying to unify and pull these disparate teams together and maybe stop replicating work like rewriting the logger over and over and over again? Because Conversation has one, KMS has one, Copeta has one, now you guys will have one. Like, can we stop doing work 4 times?
Well, it's interesting that actually I've talked to Conversation people, and last year I talked to someone from KMS about all this, and it's a bit, the sort of aims are a bit different. I mean, KMS is very focused on being an MSN client, and it's all about all the features of MSN. Telepathy is more of an abstraction, trying to find the common ground between the protocols. So there may be opportunities to work together there at some point, and our text chat UI is actually based off the code of KMS's one. So we're reusing code there, and hopefully we can work together, maybe even get a common library for doing that. At the moment, well, it's just a few days coding at the moment, so it's a bit early to be calling it a fork, but I would hope that we can find some common way to share the code. And Conversation, again, it's really advanced IRC, and Telepathy just doesn't offer all the advanced features of IRC and things. So where we're focused on the general, they're focused very much on the specific features.
Right. I mean, it's not like the project's going to go away, but there's so much overlap, and the text chat UI that you mentioned is a classic example, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is it really a focus? Is it in scope for you guys to go not just, oh, it'd be nice to, but here we're actually going to write a library that has these common widgets in it?
Well, we looked at working off the Capete library, sorry, not library, text chat UI, but the problem with that is it's very, very sort of intertwined with the internal workings of Capete. And in order to sort of separate that out and make it into a library, there was actually a Summer of Code project to do that last year, which I don't think ever came to anything. But it's just too big I mean, it would be such a huge amount of changes that it's... Dario, another guy working on this who's not here at the moment, has actually worked on trying to do that and basically given up because he's going to end up rewriting the whole thing. So that's why we're looking to see if we can work with KMS code instead.
Okay, we have to wrap up. One last question, maybe? Yeah, that's 2 last questions. Okay. 2 last questions, you first, then Jos.
So, you have a lot of references to games. We would be rather interested in integrating it, but a major question for us is Telepathy cross-platform available?
Where's David? You could probably better qualified to answer that than me.
Yeah.
There's one down here if you want.
Yeah, that works. There are efforts to get some of the telepathy stuff working on Windows and Mac. There are a few clients who quite like the telepathy framework and enjoy paying people to make sure that it was all portable. Most of it is using glib, which is already reasonably portable. So yeah, it's not like rock solid stable, but there are kind of prototypes for each of the platforms at the moment. So it's kind of like it would still be a reasonably big porting effort, I guess.
I would say that on Windows at least, it's much like KDE on Windows at the moment. It works, but it's by no means like there yet.
Yes, George, I also have a question. So in Telepathy, dbus is very central to doing all the communications.
Yeah.
And if you have a desktop where you're installing new applications from GitHub New Stuff, or maybe some, if you're running Migo from some application store, I don't think there's any security on there. So all the messages are just passing unencrypted for every application to see. Is there any work in progress on improving that and getting some security model in there?
So the security model on Linux is if it's on your machine running as your user, then it's trusted. On Windows, that tends to be not the case. So you have all of these people who aren't really used to how we do security, saying, yeah, we need this separation and security between, and there's Nokia even tried to create a secure dbus thing for their MIMO platform, and it doesn't really work. I mean, really, if you've got something which is malicious running as your user, you need to reinstall your computer anyway. That's really the only sensible solution. That's really the only sensible approach. If someone can modify arbitrary bits of your file system, then you've already lost.
One solution would be to, and that's how the Android model works, is if you install something, it doesn't have any access to anything. It runs as a completely different user, and it has to explicitly put in some manifest file, and the user has to verify it on install. It has to say these and these communication channels are available to this application, and that would mean that you can say, okay, I have an MSN chat, and it can only see the MSN user information and nothing else on my machine. Maybe there's a logger application which can see what's going on in this application, so it writes it. But it's very, very granular. And when you have open application stores or things like GitHub New Stuff, where people can get very quickly test out new stuff, it's easy for malicious software to spread. And I think it's important that the security model gets a bit more strict than it's the same user and it's the same computer, so it's okay.
So that's kind of a bigger thing than telepathy, though, isn't it? Really?
Sorry to interrupt. Please continue this discussion afterwards. We have to wrap up now.
Just before we end, down here, free T-shirts for anyone.
Please give a hand to George for his presentation.
Yeah, come and grab free